so much for another opportunity to talk about virtual reality and ethical issues that are attached to it. There are few things that I would want us to look at and point out their inconsistencies or even how they affect or plague the virtual reality industry. So it is important we start by looking at what are these ethical issues and how important are they in regards to virtual reality. So we need to know what is ethics. Now, ethics is the activity of man directed to secure the inner perfection of his own personality. It is a system of moral principles, way of deciding what is wrong or right. So we need also to know what is moral principle. Moral principle is the standard of right or wrong. Okay, so in any society there exists some kind of systems that guides people, individuals, and system as they interact within the environment. Our environment consists of various systemic elements that are interacting. Our as human being is part of it. We are part of the whole system. We are part of an environment that constitutes of the law, the principles, the ethics that we need to abide by in order to live in a way that is consistent with the laws and that will encourage brotherhood and cohesion and togetherness. So these are basically part of those elements that informs how we live and how we behave. So even as we use the systems, the devices and softwares such as the ones that are being provided by virtual realities creators and manufacturers, we have to live by these rules. We have to live by these rules and regulations in order to make sense of what is demanded of us. So there is very important thing at the core of virtual reality, and that is what we call psychological well-being. See, virtual reality influences users' emotions and mental state. Now, ethical consideration to avoid content that can cause emotional stress and harm is very imperative to be looked at or to be considered. So we need to make sure that the systems of virtual reality that we are using will not be able to trigger some kind of emotional damage on individuals and predispose them to other things which can threaten their existence or life. So ethics is very important because we use them to define the parameters with which we live within the society. So it is important to be well informed about the ethical implications of the virtual reality gadgets that we are using. Let us not just buy these devices and try to use them or even use them without considering the kind of social implications, the psychological effect and implications that comes with them or that are associated with these devices and software. So it is imperative we look into that because it is part of this and it is important. So it is a pertinent issue that we cannot wish away, but we have to look at it and be able to look deeper into it and find solution uh, and solutions that are there to last and that will make sure that we progress with these devices and these systems that are being given by these creators of manufacturers of virtual reality. Now, another thing is data privacy and data security. This is also a very important issue with virtual reality systems, because one of the things we need to realize with this is that virtual reality systems like headset and other systems that are used when people are craving or experiencing virtual reality experiences is that these systems are able to collect a lot of information, a lot of data from the users, from the location to their uh, biometric details. And so where this information is stored become an issue, and it is something that must be looked into, because at the end of the day this information are very sensitive, because people can use them for their own personal gain. So the systems users or the virtual reality consumers and users must be fully aware, must be made aware of their information or information collected from them. They have to be fully aware where this information is kept and the security that has been, or the policies and systems that have been put in place to safeguard this information. So it is important to look at that also. There is a issue of accessibility and inclusivity. This is because in our society we have different categories of people and we are configured and wired differently. There are those people that are living with some kind of problems, with some kind of disability. So virtual reality system should also have in mind this category of people who have one or two one or two things that is affecting them naturally or artificially. Some of these disabilities we acquire them owing to the environment and the accidents that probably one has been able to experience in their life. So when using these systems or when creating these systems, the manufacturers and creators of these systems must be able to put into place some ways to also consider those people who are disabled. So it is important that virtual reality that is being created should be used by all, not specific. So it is something that should be morally acceptable for all and ethically consistent across board, because all of us, we are part of this society and we all have rights, and we need to have some kind of fairness, and we need to be able to consider all members of the society when we are thinking of something that is able to bring forth a great gains like virtual reality. So another thing is the VR content must adhere to the ethical standard to prevent harmful or offensive experiences that could negatively impact users. So content created should be censored so that even the children and their rights are safeguarded in the use of this system. So it is important that the content and the user safety is also a pertinent issue that should be considered, because at the end of the day we have ourselves to use these systems, And if they are able to bring some kind of inconsistencies in terms of maybe somebody being injured, or being something, the system that you're using is able to inflict some kind of pain, not only physical pain but also psychological pain, owing to psychological pain owing to the kind of scenario or the virtual reality content that you are using or experiencing, then it becomes important for the experiences being created or being simulated using the virtual reality or using the virtual reality system must be ethically acceptable for all categories of people, be it children and even adults, right? So also the use of virtual reality is also something that is very addictive in nature, because we tend to use these systems daily, and we tend to enjoy the experiences, and sometimes um, the kind of gratification we derive from these systems can always push us to use these devices and use them excessively to a point we get addicted to them. So, addiction and overuse must also be something we need to consider when we are buying or purchasing some kind of when we are purchasing some of these devices to use them at home, because VR is very immersive in nature and can lead to addiction and basically overuse. So this is very important, especially if we are considering the vulnerable population, that is the children. We need to have them in mind, because they are the generation who are growing with this technology, and so we don't want to have children who are addicted to technology, who are so dependent to technology that they disregard their social life. So it is important we look at that aspect also, the aspect of addiction and overuse. So we also need to look at the essence and how these devices and softwares that comes with virtual reality are being used. We need not to misuse the systems or the gadgets that are being provided for us, because sometimes the VR can be used for malicious purposes, such as harassment and cyberbullying. So ethical development must address this kind of concerns, because they are very important to the users and the consumer. We want to use systems that will give us the best out of what uh, we want, out of what is given or from what we purchase. So it is important to look at that. So there is also the uh, education and training aspect of this. When now we know that VR has got much potential in education and training, so ethical consideration must be included in educational content, so that this content that is for educational purpose or purposes are unbiased, accurate, and effective, so that we are able to derive the most out of this technology we are talking about. So there is also the element or the angle of should be cultural sensitive and avoid stereotyping and biasness. It should there should be some kind of cultural awareness and sensitivity that comes with this system, so that we know exactly what we are doing with the system, and even the system and the kind of environment or the reality that is being, created or provided to the user is devoid of cultural insensitivity. So we need to be very sensitive when it comes to the